At the Roundhouse this year, lawmakers seem to have a rather serious approach to tax reform, from eliminating loopholes and cutouts to rethinking the way the state tries to attract business. What businesses pay to the state seems likely to at least be tweaked by the time lawmakers are done this go around. Now, joining us to talk taxes and a lot more and who should pay for them, a tax-paying citizen who is never late to file, Gwyneth Doland, Executive Director of the New Mexico Foundation for Open Government. That's right. From the New Mexico Law Review, Editor-in-Chief Sophie Martin is here. Former New Mexico House Republican Whip Daniel Foley is here. And from the website Capitol Report New Mexico, Rob Nikolewski. Rob, you're camped out at the Capitol these days. And I always love to ask you particularly about your sense of things on this tax fight. What's your sense of things? Because this is as Dan likes to, it's a vertical chessboard here.
Yes.
It's a very difficult thing to unwind.
Yes.
What's your sense of this?
Yes, New Mexico taxes are kind of like a crazy quilt of things. In fact, Tom Taylor on Thursday, he and Bill Scherer, both of them Republicans, one on the House side, one on the Senate side, introduced a bill that would have a flat 2% tax. Just a proposal. I doubt it will get very far. I doubt it will become law, but because it has on the House side 6 committee referrals, which is unprecedented. But they weren't complaining because they said they want some discussion about this because New Mexico taxes, I think even for an accountant, is difficult to follow what exactly is going on.
Absolutely, Sophie. You know, interesting in the press recently, there's been a lot of highlight on the high wage tax credit. And what's interesting, a beautiful bit of reporting, by the way, from Bruce Krasnow
at the New Mexican.
At the New Mexican, made an interesting point here. Passed in 2004, the high wage tax break is still in the books. We've got the back-to-school sales tax holiday 2005, GRT exemption for newspaper sales passed in 1969.
It's a chestnut.
It's a mess of things. So I have to ask again, how does one start to unwind? How do you prioritize these kind of things?
We need to remember it's a mess of things, each of which has a taxpayer at the other end, or a group of taxpayers at the other end, for whom this is, at least in their perception, their lifeblood. This is something that's really necessary and important to them. And so I think that's a piece of the complexity. Another thing that I think is extraordinarily complex for New Mexicans right now and for our government right now is that we do have priorities that we do want to put tax breaks behind. And we have an entire party that says, let's cut taxes in order to stimulate the economy. We also have a long-standing, this is not just New Mexico, but nationwide, tradition of giving tax breaks to things that we want to encourage. We wanted to encourage home buying, tax breaks for home buyers. We want to encourage, and I know we're going to talk about this more, film production, TV production in the state, tax credits for those things. In some ways, they're trying to accomplish similar things, the breaks and the reducing to the very Steve Forbes sounding flat tax. We're trying to find a way to sort of right-size the taxes. But I think we always come up against, here's a constituency that wants, needs, desires this. Here's a constituency who thinks we shouldn't pick sides. How do we balance those two?
Interesting on that note, Gwyneth, on that high wage tax credit specifically, a little more detail there. What's interesting about it, the incentive cost the state $9.3 million in 2011, $48 million last year. And the reason for that is you could retroactively add your employees you've had for a $12,000 tax credit per employee going back to 2000 and whatever. And it's a loophole in the classic sense, but everybody seemed happy with it because it was generating money for people. That's an awfully tough thing to roll back once you got those kind of dollars at stake, it seems.
Yeah, and Sophie makes a really good point. Governments do put in place tax credits and incentives when they want to encourage kinds of behavior that they think are important or will increase economic development. The problem is that we don't do a good enough job of figuring out later on whether or not they're working. And once something is passed, you're right, it generally disappears down a wormhole where only the people who benefit from it pay attention to it. That's why the Foundation for Open Government supports the tax expenditure budget, or report as they're called, which is a kind of report that analyzes all of these things, how much money they're costing, how much revenue they may be generating, how effective they are. We were very happy when Susana Martinez said that she wanted to do her own report. Fantastic. Unfortunately, they ran into some trouble because it's really hard and it's a lot of work.
Right.
And so Senator Keller has a new proposal for the third year, I think now, And he came up with a way to kind of get over that problem, which is to take pieces of all of these one at a time. So over a 5-year period, he wants to make sure that we look at all of the tax incentives and credits and benefits, but he'll leave it up to the nonpartisan analysts group to figure out which chunk they want to do in any given year. So long as at the end of the 5-year period, we've looked at them all.
Interesting.
Having that report would be an incredible window of transparency into where our money is going, and it would allow advocates and elected officials and everyone else out there to say, all right, these are the ones we like, these are the ones we don't.
Right. Such a simple, elegant logic to that.
I know, but you know, it's actually a lot of work. I spend a lot of my time analyzing bills now.
Yeah. Right?
It's a lot of work, takes a lot of time.
This man right here to your right could relate to that, analyzing bills. Here's my question as a former lawmaker. Why do we never seem to be able to put a sunset clause in a lot of these things? Because that's been said to be a big problem for some of these. As Gwyneth mentioned, they go underneath the radar. No one's aware of them. What's the resistance to sunset clauses?
A lot of them have sunset clauses. They just remove the sunset clause later on.
Right.
It gets added on in a piece of language. Lots of times, legislation passes because you say, okay, fine, let's put the sunset clause in, and then 3 years from now you do a bill that does away with the sunset clause and no one's paying attention, and it passes. You know, one of the things that would go, and I hope the Foundation for Open Government would work on as well, is, and I think is sort of along the lines of what they're talking about, is truth in forecasting. It's the worst in Santa Fe. You can go to somebody and say, we're gonna raise a cigarette tax. Okay, we're gonna raise cigarette tax. It's gonna generate $100 million. They don't take into account that the higher you price the cigarettes, the more likely they are to go on to tribal lands and buy them for no tax, buy them over the internet for, but that doesn't matter because the bill still says it's going to make you this money. So I think the problem is in Santa Fe, specifically in the history of New Mexico, our tax policy has been written by lobbyists. He with the best lobbyist gets the tax break that they need. And I think at some point we need to hit the reset button. We need to say, because we can't. Every time we try to fix one thing, we say, okay, we'll fix this over here on the gross receipts tax. Then the city say you're taking money from me.
That's right.
And then the governmental contractors say, well, if you raise mine over here, the feds aren't going to pay me, so I'm going to move out of the state. You can't fix it one piece at a time because this piece is entwined with 9 more. And unless you're going to go in and do all of these things together, I think we're going to continue to have this problem. The other problem we got is we're just not honest out of Santa Fe. Governor Richardson, we had the gas tax. We took a chunk of that gas tax and it went into the highway maintenance fund. Well, we decided that we were going to take that money out of the highway maintenance fund and use it for the rail runner. It's part of what you can do with gas taxes. Now our roads and bridges are a disaster in New Mexico and we don't have money, so what's the answer? The answer is we're going to raise another tax. And so I think the problem is that the citizens aren't as informed. You go out to them and you say, we're going to raise your taxes, we're going to fix your schools. It's like right now with the bond issue in Albuquerque. Everybody's out there saying, including the mayor, it's not going to raise your taxes. But what they're not telling you is if you vote no on the bond, your taxes will actually go down a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that you should vote no on the bond. What I'm saying is, maybe it's worth $100 a year to make your schools better. But we just have so much of this stuff is so entwined. It's almost like a mushroom. You turn it over, it looks really nice at the top. You turn it over, there's a billion tentacles going all over the place.
And without your comprehensive report, nobody knows what all the pieces are.
That's right, which makes your point earlier just even stronger, given what Dan just said. And Rob, on that note, on film incentives specifically, let's tackle that one too. We've got some movement on that depending on your point of view.
Right.
And ostensibly, folks want the cap that's now at $50 million to be raised. The governor does not want it to be raised because it's more predictable for the government. Who's being better served there? Is the government being better served there, or is the industry being better served to have a cap in that regard?
Well, I mean, if you talk to the industry people, you would think that this cap is horribly onerous. But just as we said before, so many of these things are unmeasurable.
Right.
And Senator Keller also had a bill that passed a couple of years ago to try to find out how this the film credits are actually working, how much money is being made, because the critics, with a great degree of justification, said, well, some of these numbers are squishy. You can say it creates X number of jobs, but maybe it's one person doing 4 different projects, same job. It's not 4 people, it's just 1 people.
And what you're talking about, he and his committee asked for a report.
Right.
A third-party report to suss all that out. It hasn't even been started yet.
It passed through the legislature. Now, now the people over at DFA are finally getting to it. Now there's another bill that's saying maybe the state auditor's office should do it instead of the governor's office and DFA. My general thinking, being a free market guy, is that I think we need to have more simplicity. I defy anyone outside of Lucky Varela and John Arthur Smith who can explain to me how the tax system works in this state. There are so many exceptions. And the film people often say, well, what about the tax credits we make for oil and gas? Well, at least the oil and gas people are paying a severance tax, which pays 1/3 or makes up 1/3 of the state's revenue. But it's almost like, to use the tentacles metaphor, it's something that I think if we had something that was just more simple to understand, but it's just human nature to say, even if we came back and said, all right, we're going to have a 2% flat tax and do this, and it's going to be very simple. There's all these incentives for people to say, I want to protect me. Then if you let the door in for one group, then you let the door in for so many.
Well, when you talk about the movies, the interesting thing about the movies too is that that people have been asking for years. I've been a proponent of it. I think the movies help us, even if depending on what we get in return, just getting New Mexico out there. I mean, I can't tell you the relatives that have seen New Mexico through Breaking Bad and movies like that. I think there's a value to that. There clearly is. But what I find interesting is, you heard all the stuff about this tax credits and all of this stuff, and if we don't do it, we're going to lose it. And if we lose it, we're going to do it. And yet nobody's been able to come forward and say, here's what it does. Not the government, not the movie industry. I mean, you'd think if the movie industry could come in and say, you gave us $25 million last year. We put back in your economy $100 million, plus we gave you $800 million of global press, for your state. Nobody can even do that, and it worries me.
Also, we just have a mistrust of numbers as part of the problem.
I think so too. I think that this, I hate to say it, but I think this push toward it needs to be simple. I need to understand it perfectly. Unfortunately, maybe matched with and therefore we can't use it very sensitively. We can't go in and give the actual incentives that a particular industry would need, or something that would be meaningful or effective. And so we have to balance those two. And we can't all be experts in everything.
And all in 60 days.
And all in 60 days. Yeah.
Well, you have the interim committee process.
That's true.
I mean, people are making $30,000 a year in per diem on interim committees. You'd think that this would be some of the stuff they could pick
I
up
appreciate
over
you adding that in. Exactly right. After the break, we're back with this panel discussing the implications of new statistics that say 7 in 10 births in New Mexico are paid for by Medicaid.